I've been motivated to draw all day long. Let's do this.
1 minute later.
That's not just me, right? Like, you stare at a blank page, you know you should be drawing, but you just can't start. Your motivation's just like gone like this. Well, don't worry about that anymore, because today we're gonna break down the science of motivation. And I'll even provide like some proven techniques to never run out of creative energy again. And this is not just like what I think is good. It's actually backed by neuroscience and psychology. I'm Marc. I used to work for Blizzard Entertainment, and now I teach art for a living. And even after like literal decades of working as a professional artist, I've always been struggling with motivation. So I'm sure some of you do as well. And in this teaching act of my career, I've been really interested in knowing how this whole thing works. Like why I can just sit down and focus on my work instead of checking my phone all the time, just trying to find any way to like harness my motivation and focus it in the right direction. And well, now I've got answers. And a little bit later, I'll even share the one technique that's worked the best for me, one that's completely transformed my art practice. So let's dig into it. Let's get into your brain first. Scientists have discovered 3 major motivation killers that stop people from pursuing their goals. And then once you recognize these in yourself, you can actually rewire your thinking and see immediate results. It's helped me tons. Nothing kills creativity faster than feeling forced. So when drawing becomes something that you have to do, your brain automatically creates resistance. This used to happen to me all the time with commissions, for example. The moment it becomes work, my motivation just plummets. I would have all the motivation for my own personal art, but as soon as that work was meant for someone else, it felt like the biggest chore ever. Like, I'd rather die than do it. And the solution here is to change the I have to part into I choose to. And these aren't just, word games, it's psychology. Like, you don't have to draw an anime today. You choose to because you want to level up your character designs, maybe. You see the difference? I would choose to work on my commissions because that was, for me, the best way to get better and eventually be able to charge more money for my work. But if it were a piece where I wouldn't think that I could improve much by drawing it, and if the pay to me didn't feel like it matched the efforts, then my motivation would be at 0. So try this, before your next drawing session, say out loud, I'm choosing to draw today because, and fill in your reason. Maybe it's because you want to improve, or because creating makes you happy. This seemingly small change makes an actual huge difference in your brain. And then personally, I don't say it out loud anymore, but that's exactly what my inner voice sounds like. And as silly as this might sound, it always works. I think of it as just like this little pep talk before starting work on something. Just gotta find that right angle where it's something that I'm choosing to do. When a drawing task conflicts with your goals, motivation vanishes. For example, if you're like me and hate doing studies, even though, it's obviously super helpful and it might help my art down the line, it's near impossible to find motivation to get started. I know it's good for me, but the outcome is too far removed for my brain to connect it to. And the solution is to include your studies as part of your creative process. So since drawing amazing characters might feel too much of a stretch, if you're just doing anatomy studies, for example, well, instead of doing those in isolation, just simply make the study an integral part of your drawing process. Like if you're studying perspective, drawing just boring cubes, well, maybe think of them as the building blocks for the next, epic environment art that you'll create later. This stressful 2-minute gesture drawing study, well, by itself, it might not be a good time for you if it's done without context, but maybe it's just the sketch for your character illustration. So not quite just a study anymore. It's more than that. You've turned it into the foundation for a new drawing. Now there's context. The study makes immediate sense and it helps you with your current task now, not for some hypothetical drawing in the future. And then this is the big one. When you feel a drawing is beyond your skill level, it's almost impossible to start. Or it's almost guaranteed that you'll quit along the way if you, let's say, underestimated it and actually started. And the solution here is to focus on effort, not results. Now, it took me a while to get to that point because remember that even your favorite artists were once beginners. Like every master has created thousands of terrible drawings. They just didn't quit. Instead of thinking that I'll never draw hands as well as that guy, for example, try every hand I draw makes me 1% better at drawing hands. It's progress. It's not perfection. It's just like gains at the gym. Like it's hard to notice day to day, but results are always impossible to ignore over months if the consistency is there. So in the context of drawing, it doesn't really matter if the result is kind of crap. It's like having one workout where you're not at full energy. What counts is that you showed up, that you actually put in the effort, and now you have that experience forever, regardless of how the drawing turned out. And before I move on to the biology of motivation, where things get really interesting, learning to draw is hard, especially if you're like most, trying to learn it on your own, maybe with some YouTube tutorials, maybe with my tutorials. I have a ton of art classes on the channel that I hope helps with that. But if you're looking for more, for like a structured education where everything is carefully planned for you on a weekly basis, with access to an awesome community of artists on our private Discord, I recommend you check out the Art School program. The spring sale just started, so you'll be able to get it at a huge discount until the end of the month, so 2 more weeks only, and you can learn all about it with the link in the video description below. Check it out. I think you'll be happy you did. Like the over 27,000 other registered students already on the program. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Your motivation is literally controlled by brain chemicals. Scientists at Vanderbilt discovered that go-getters, like people who work hard for rewards, have higher dopamine levels in the reward and motivation part of their brain. Now, what does that mean for you, like for artists? Your motivation isn't just about willpower, it's actually brain chemistry. And the good part is that you can actually hack your dopamine system regardless of what you were born with. And here are 3 big ways to boost your art motivation dopamine. Break down big projects into tiny wins. So instead of maybe drawing a full comic page today, try breaking down that big reward into multiple smaller ones, like sketching the layout for panel 1, because then each small completion will give you a new dopamine hit. Oh, I need one more hit, bro. This makes me sound like a junkie, but this simple trick just works too well. The second is to create a visible progress system. Tracking your drawing streaks on a calendar or use a progress bar for skills that you're developing. Seeing progress physically triggers dopamine. And that's why it's so fun to see your character stats going up in a game. Imagine how boring those games would be instead if you never saw those numbers. And then third, reward small victories. Like after focused drawing time, like heavy studies, something difficult, give yourself a small reward. Maybe a short break, a snack, or maybe you get to watch one more episode of whatever show you're watching. This will train your brain to associate drawing with rewards. And I think this is most important when doing studies that might not be as fun as more creative or personal work. Basically for stuff that won't probably get a lot of likes if you just post it on social media. Likes aren't the only rewards. Now here's something that most artists don't know. Willpower, or focus, is a finite resource that depletes throughout the day. Columbia University researchers found that we make worse decisions as the day goes on because our mental energy gets used up. I made a whole class on this topic of focus, so go check that out if you're interested, but the TLDR is that you get about 4 hours of full focus or willpower on average per day. Of course, if something's not using your focus, 100%, you'll be able to stretch that out longer than 4 hours. But for artists, this is critical information. Like, when do you usually try to draw? If it's after a full day of work or school, you're working with depleted willpower. My trick was to do it during class, although I never finished college, so there's that to consider. And here are 3 science-backed willpower hacks for artists. First one will be draw first thing in the morning. Even 15 minutes of morning drawing uses your highest quality mental energy. So I would save technical or like difficult pieces for morning sessions. Number 2, create art routines and hopefully long-term habits. Like, it helps to have a specific drawing ritual, like the same music, same setup, same warm-up exercises. There's strong evidence behind rituals and how it can help us get in the right frame of mind really quickly, having to waste less focus in the process. And then 3, work on projects. Decision fatigue kills motivation. So one way to avoid not knowing what to do and just wasting a ton of time trying to figure that out is to be working on a project, like working on a cast of characters that you've planned ahead of time. This way you don't have to sit down in front of a white canvas and wonder about what you're going to be drawing for hours. So series of related images are great ways to bypass that. Like my Chroma Island project, and I've designed all these things, but there's still so much left to draw that I basically never run out of ideas. It's so motivating to have something like that that I can always revert back to. Now, remember at the beginning when I said that I would share the one technique that transformed my art practice? It actually changed a lot more than that, from like how I respond to emails and messages, how I tackle my chores. Anyways, here it is. It's the 2-minute rule. Basically, when you don't feel like drawing, commit to just 2 minutes. That's it. Just draw for 2 minutes, then you can stop. And here's why it works. Starting is always the hardest part. Once you begin, the activation energy is overcome, and continuing becomes much easier. 90% of the time, you'll keep going past those 2 minutes. And this is actually taking advantage of a human behavior that scientists call the Zeigarnik effect, which is basically a psychological phenomenon where we tend to remember unfinished or interrupted tasks better than completed ones, just due to a sense of tension or cognitive dissonance created by the incomplete state. I used to go days without drawing because I just didn't feel inspired. But now I haven't missed a day in years because of this simple hack. Sometimes I'll actually just commit 2 minutes and be done with it for the day. In 2 minutes, I can still get a quick gesture drawing in, so it doesn't feel completely pointless. And just that action, just that little bit of commitment every day helps me keep my flame alive. Because personally, if I don't draw for a couple of days, it becomes increasingly harder to motivate myself to do it. And this has been a huge help. So maybe it'll help you too. So let's wrap this up quickly with your motivation action plan. Change your language from I have to I choose to. Connect every study to a finished drawing, giving it more context. Focus on effort, the XP you're gaining, not the results. Break projects into dopamine triggering small wins. Track your progress visually, draw during your peak willpower hours, create a consistent art routine or art ritual. When all else fails, use the 2-minute rule. So try these science-backed techniques this week, and I guarantee you'll see a difference in your motivation and productivity. And if you found this helpful, make sure you pay the class fee of either 1 like or 1 sub, and hit the bell button too to make sure you're not late for next week's class. And maybe drop a comment letting me know which technique works best for you, or if you're using something different to, keep your motivation on track. I'm always eager to learn more. Oh, and also you can download my free brush back with the link below as a reward for paying attention until the end. Wow.